The 2024 NFL season has already kicked off with games on Thursday and Friday, but Sunday marks the first football Sunday of the 2024 season. And one of the local teams is in action on Monday night as well. So let's look at the best bets for the first football weekend of the 2024 season. And joining me on this edition of Hitting the Books is the great sports betting analyst. She's also a host for Sports Grid. The one and only Kasey Hudson joins me now. Kasey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm getting acclimated to New Jersey. I'm already trying to prepare myself for what everyone is saying is real winter. And I'm a Florida gal through and through, but couldn't be more excited for football Sunday. The only thing that compares to football Sunday getting started, obviously, for me is hockey season, but both things are fantastic and both are right there coming up here shortly.
Yeah, it's about to be a little overlap for you. For the people who don't know, Kasey just moved to the NYC metro area from Florida, so she's about to be in store for a real winter coming up. We'll talk about that another time. But Kasey, let's start with the local teams here in New York, because the Giants, they open their season hosting the Vikings on Sunday. Right now, they're 1.5-point underdogs at home. The over-under line is currently at 41. What's your best bet for the Vikes versus Big Blue?
Yeah, this was kind of dated as a game maybe not a lot of people might be watching, but it's worth a watch. You've got Daniel Jones, who's got a lot of pressure on his shoulder, coming off of injury, has to get something moving, and he has the support and the foundation of his head coach behind him. Then you have a Vikings team that lost J.J. McCarthy, not a lot of faith in Darnold, got some movement on the offensive line, some holes in their defense. So when I'm looking at this matchup, I'm more so just looking at the fact that the Giants were the sixth best team against the spread at home in 2023, regardless of some of their inconsistencies. They also finished 6-2 against the spread over their last 8 games. So I do see the Giants being able to cover the spread at home here. Most importantly, though, we're looking at a questionable Addison in the mix. We're going to see how well Darnold can connect with Jefferson. But between some of the weather stuff that might take place, as you may know, we're going to see some wind gusts. We're going to see a little bit of rain throughout the weekend. And you've got Aaron Jones on a Vikings roster, so the ground game is going to have to get a lot of emphasis and a lot of action. So I'm not really touching the under total here, but it's something worth gauging. But I like Giants to cover the spread. I like Aaron Jones to go over 3.5 rush attempts. I like Darnold to use his legs when he panics. And I like Neighbors to go over 64.5 receiving yards and a tutty. Why not?
Oh, okay. Anytime touchdown for Malik Neighbors. Giants fans will be happy about that. Got the Giants covering the spread. We will see how all that works out. Over to the Jets. They kick their season off on Monday Night Football as they visit the defending NFC champions. That would be the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Gang Green, they're also dogs on the road as the Niners, they're 4.5-point favorites here. If you like the Jets, you can hit that money line. It's about around plus 180. Over under for this one, 44. Are you backing Gang Green on the road here, Kasey, or are you rolling with the home favorites?
I don't know if I can entirely back Gang Green here, but I don't want to upset anyone in the tri-state area. I'm still new, so I'll preference it this way. Aaron Rodgers has to prove something this season, and while he might not display that in his interviews or in his demeanor, he knows it. He doesn't want to be the washed-up guy. He had tremendous stats in 2022, regardless of the roster that he was wielding, and I think he's capable of bringing a lot of energy to this roster, regardless of the drama. He plays very well versus the 49ers, something to keep in mind. Dominant 20-2 touchdown to interception ratio in his career versus the 49ers. So he's very protective with the ball. He's very accurate with the ball. But you've got two teams that stout defensively in the trenches. So I think that we're going to see a little bit more airing out. You got the Jets that ranked second in pass defense, Niners that ranked 14th. So you got Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be able to connect with Wilson and find some open airways in 49ers territory. I like them to be able to cover the spread on the road here. The one thing that I know some people are nervous about, Jets went 6-8 against the spread as underdogs last season, but you're obviously had a little bit of a, I want to say, quarterback carousel going on. You didn't have the one and only Aaron Rodgers at the helm. So I think Jets can cover. I think we're going to see a big battle defensively. Another game where I would maybe gauge the under here, unless Christian McCaffrey has himself just a heyday, as well as Deebo Samuel. But I think this is going to be a great matchup. Also, probably take a look at Hall to get 25 receiving yards and a tutty as well.
Okay, there you go. Look, I like what you're doing here, Kasey, making the New York fans a little happy, taking both teams to cover here. Not a bad start. Not a bad start in the NYC metro area. Let's take a look at another Sunday afternoon matchup, which features the Cowboys visiting the Browns. So even though Cleveland is going to be without a few key players, including running back Nick Chubb, they're still 2.5-point home favorites. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, last season, the Cowboys and Browns ranked 5th and 6th, respectively, overall in team defense and the over-under line reflects that. Currently, the number is at 41. Do you like playing the points total here, or are you backing either of these teams to cover the spread in this Week 1 matchup?
I'm going to stay away from this one just because there's too many question marks for me. For starters, I understand why the Browns kind of have this spread coverage here because they probably statistically have the more stout and consistent defense. I mean, Garrett coming at you is probably one of the scariest things as an NFL player. But I don't want to put drama in the mix of it, but there's just so much drama around the Dallas Cowboys team right now, and I think that that's kind of going to impact morale. Not to mention is it some of the differences that are going to be taking place coverage-wise for their defense. I think they're going to be working through some kinks, some new adjustments. They try to use some of their linebackers as workhorses, and I don't know if that's going to pan out versus a Brown team. Now, Deshaun Watson has a shoulder thing going on. You mentioned the fact that they'll be without Chubb, so there's some holes when it comes to the Browns' offense, which just kind of leaves a few question marks. But we saw them rely on QB2 and QB3 last season and still be a bit of a progressive team offensively. Their defense is just their edge right here. So if you want to lean on a side, I'd probably take the Browns, regardless of the payday for CeeDee Lamb, regardless of the question marks around Dak Prescott and his contract. And I'm going to just stay away from this one. I just think that there's too many inconsistencies and too many question marks that can really put this in position for any team to win.
All right, Cowboys versus Browns, a stay away for Kasey here. Last thing for me, Kasey, you know the bettors out there, they love some player props. You know I do. What is one player prop that you really like for the rest of these Week 1 contests that we have coming up?
Yeah, I want to be friendly with my new neighbors, but I've got to give some love to the home team, and that's going to be Tampa Bay. They're already kind of counted out when it comes to the NFC South, and that's fine. They love being underdogs, and they love sneaking up on their opponents. But Baker Mayfield did tremendous behind a fractured offensive line last season. Now he's got one of the top rookie offensive linemen protecting him, not to mention the chemistry and the bromance that he has built with guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Rachaad White. But it brings me to Chris Godwin. Over 57.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to smash this number for a couple of reasons. He's feeling more confident under a new offensive coordinator. He didn't really mesh well with Canales last season. And plus, he's going back to his sweet spot in the slot. And we know that this guy is so dominant in the slot. He's also really good with those yards after catch, like that yak. And him and Baker Mayfield, I'm just really excited to see those connections and to see how dominant he is this season and how much he's going to impact this Tampa Bay Bucs offense. So it's going to be Chris Godwin for me.
All right, there you go. Chris Godwin over 57.5 yards receiving. We'll see how that player prop plays out. That is Kasey Hudson. Check her out on Sports Grid as an analyst and a host. Does a tremendous job there. Kasey, once again, welcome to the New York metro area. I will see you soon. We'll connect once again for another one of these segments.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Thank you so much.
Anytime.